Welcome to this video, and this video program is meant for MJM L22 and MNM L11. This series of video program you will understand the basic concepts of communication research methods. Research is an adventurous journey, a trek kind of trekking, and aiming to reach some unknown destination, and with the very proper mapping and other tools to reach those particular destination. And you will understand or you will explore more destination point of views or ideas and viewpoints. And with that understanding, this program we are going to explain about the basic concepts of doing a research. I'm Arul Selvan, faculty with the School of Journalism and New Media Studies. Joining with me, Akriti Taneja. Doing a research is a part of a master degree program, and in this particular research course, practical, you are expected to produce one research proposal, starting with the idea of a topic, then exploring that topic in a different dimension. That before that, you need to understand what is the basic concepts of research methodology. We have one dedicated communication research theory course, and we are strongly encouraging you to read those units. This particular video episode, if you can watch it along with unit number 1 called Understanding Communication Research Methods. We'll go to the concept of research techniques. Before that, we need to understand what is research methods. Research is part of everybody's life. Every day, every part of our routine life, we used to do kind of informal or kind of unstructured kind of exploration of information. For example, if you want to buy a product, initially when you started planning to buy a product, you haven't identified any particular product, but you want to buy one instrument or one consumer goods, but which company, which model, which price range, that you will fix it after doing kind of preliminary exploration. You will check with the multiple sources. This is a kind of research, and we are doing this. I gave one example of buying a product, and we will do, if you look at your routine life, we are doing many such kind of exploration. Similarly, the research methods are meant for exploring solution or exploring answer for unknown concept, or we might end up with any scenario where we have more questions and there's less answers. That way we'll try to explore, we'll explore it very systematically, and we'll try to figure out the solution or answer to those questions. So that is a research. If you look at the principle of communication research, is basically research methodology is a kind of thinking. It's a way of life. It's a bit difficult actually to pinpoint you have to do this manner, you have to take a step A, step B, step C, like that. But this is a kind of, you have to orient yourself to undertake a research, or if you want to be part of the research process, you have to start thinking in terms of exploring new information. Scientific study or scientist, they try their level best to accommodate or adapt to this kind of style of thinking. Thinking in the sense, exploring new information, exploring new ideas. Or whenever you find some interesting area, you try to ask question, why this is happening? What happens if that happened in different context? So you start asking more questions and try to figure out the answer. This is the simplest way of doing a research. In normal routine life, we used to do that, and if we do it in an academic or industry or market research scenario, the research topic may be sometimes given to us, or we may need to identify on our own. So primarily, it's a thinking process on our own, rather than adopting principles set by some books or some standards. So if you're able to adapt yourself of exploring new information, that's research. And it's primarily meant to explore truth. Truth in the sense we have an answer, we have a question. For that question, we need to find out the answer. That answer needs to be justifiable to you, to others, and they are able to convince themselves to accept your answer. If it is close to truth, then you can convince yourself and you can convince others also. And it's a continuous process. You have some question and you have found an answer. That is not the end of the road. That same issue can be re-examined, or somebody else can take it forward to the next stage. So research is a continuous process. And we are looking at the individualistic perspective. But a similar manner, the many people might be attempting same experiment, same exploration on the similar context. And that's why the publications are coming. If you collate all the available information, they're trying to look at one issue from the multiple perspective, particularly for identifying an answer or solution from the holistic manner. So one issue is being looked into from multiple perspective and finding a solution or finding an answer from a holistic manner. And this is over the process of research. We are finding answer. That answers are accumulated over the period of time, either within oneself or within the group or within the society, through publicly sharing the details. So the answers are add up to the one pool. So over the period of time, many people asking questions, many people able to answer those questions. If you accumulate that, you will have more information about particular scenario. That's a knowledge. So somebody else wants to know more about particular scenario, so no need to do it from the beginning. So they can check the existing knowledge, then take it forward to the new directions. And the research process, we have to look at it from multiple perspective. For example, if we want to study the internet usage in the rural segment, and the person is not educated much, and having a mobile connectivity and smartphone and 24/7 data plan, sometimes we'll be curious to know what kind of content the person is accessing that. So we are a little curious to do that. So we might ask a question, or we might spend time with a person, or we might use a technological tool to explore how your 24/7 time is being spent with the streaming site. What kind of content is being explored? So the multiple ways in which we can interact with them. Personally, we can interact, or without person's knowledge also we can do that, but subject to the privacy conditions. So that now we can do it from the rural side, or it can be done from the urban context. It can be done in a different other settings, different variable settings. So over the period of time, if many studies happened on usage pattern, you will come to know about that in India or any specific social context. Internet is being used by particular group on this scenario, this manner, and another group spends time in a different manner. So we'll find a different variety of information on given scenario on that. And the research based on decisions, based on exploring the steps, whatever steps we are taking, in order to enlarge the existing knowledge. Either we might add the new knowledge, or we might test the existing knowledge, whether it's true or not. So we will explain about all these kind of various types in the later stage. I told you about in the beginning about the market, if we go to market and buy a product, how we used to do the explore the information thing. So the normal routine life, we are doing that. We are not doing very systematically, okay, if you want to buy a product, step 1, check with the family members. Step 2, check with the company. Step 3 is check with the representative. We never do very step-by-step method. Randomly we'll do that. As per our convenience, we do that. As per our choice, we do that. But when it comes to the typical academic research, it can't be done based on our convenience. It can't be done based on randomly. There is a systematic approach. There is a scientific approach. Everything needs to be justified. Why do we need to do that? because whatever information or knowledge we are generating through our research is being sent back to the society or sent back to the community. So somebody else wants to study or explore more about the subject, no need to start from the beginning, but they can understand your knowledge, then they can take it forward. But in order to do that, and they have to follow the same steps being practiced in your research. So it should be scientific, should be systematic. So that is the basic foundational principles of any research settings, scientific and systematic. This is the basic principles of what is a research. And why do we need to do a research? We have explained about what's the purpose of research. And why do we need to do the research? I'll ask Akriti to explain that process.
The first and the primary aspect of conducting research is to find a solution, either to a social problem or a real life problem. Now, these problems, they can be in transdisciplinary in nature, it can be interdisciplinary in nature, or it can be related to communication processes only specifically. It can also go beyond that. Apart from that, we also need to conduct research in order to identify the gaps that are present in the existing knowledge, and also we need to develop theories. So for that, we need to identify the kind of knowledge that we're gaining and the kind of knowledge that we might need to gain or might need to give around to the society. We also need to challenge the existing facts and figures that have been put out there, and in order to do that, research is of utmost essence.
We are not doing research only for our individual needs. We are doing for the sake of welfare of the society, welfare of different institutions, or betterment of the individuals, betterment of different segments on that. So the research outcome might varies from scenario to scenario, but end product of any research settings is explaining a process. While explaining this process, you need to have kind of evidence in order to prove that this is a scenario, this is a solution, this is an answer to this particular context. And evidence, from where we'll get evidence? If milk is in white color, then we have to prove that it's in white color. Or if I'm arguing that milk might change to brown or green color, then others, will be difficult to convince others. If you want to prove that milk in a different color, then you have to produce the evidence. And why is it changing the color? Similarly, when people are spending time with online or the streaming websites, when we started with the research, why they are spending so much time on online, we found that entertainment. They're spending more time with entertainment. So why they are spending time more with entertainment, that leads to another answer that. So in order to prove that the utilization of internet is not matching with their expectation or not matching with their lifestyle. A normal unskilled laborer working 8 hours in an industry and coming back to home and spending remaining 5 hours, 6 hours in a streaming websites. So we can ask many questions on that. And whether over the period of time, whether it's being leads to beneficial to the individual or not. If it is not beneficial, it's not good for the community, not good for the society. So we have to prescribe some alternative method of changing their usage pattern. So we are explaining that. When we are explaining that, we have to produce a data. Or this many number of people have studied, and this many number of data generated, and this many number of hours they are spending. Out of the 80 hours a person spends in a month, nearly 65 hours spends with a streaming entertainment package. So this is what required in a research. When you are trying to explain a certain scenario, the explanation should back up with evidence. And evidence, when you are doing a research, evidence needs to be collected. After systematically, scientifically collecting the data or evidence, and if you correlate all the data and evidence, that leads to explanation. So one of the primary skill or requirement to do a research is ability to collect reliable, objective verifiable data that supports your explanation. That data is evidence for you to give a explanation thing. So there are many requirement to a research. One, in order to give an explanation, you need evidence. Evidence needs to be real life evidence, concrete evidence needs to be produced or gathered. And it has to be systematically collected. And in a research, when we are starting the research, when we have the questions, we are trying to find the answer for that. But while finding the answer, we assume that this could be the scenario, and we are assuming hypothetically we have to develop a statement. And the people, youngsters, spend more time with the streaming website due to lack of skill for utilizing internet for their personal or professional utilization. This is our assumption. Might be true or may not be true on that. But we can explore the scenario, interacting with the more individuals, collect the data, and the data leads to an explanation. That explanation might be related to our initial hypothetical statement or not. So the evidence collecting is crucial, and that needs to be systematically, scientifically collected, and that needs to be that should be collated or corroborated with our initial hypothetical statement. Overall, if you look at the research process, and primarily it explains, we are saying it explains in particular settings. The settings usually related to our personal life, related to nearby environment, or related to the social settings. And if you try to understand the research happened in particular topic, and if you go through the literature, you will be able to understand the social system in which the institutions are functioning on that given topic. The major outcome of the research is it will give a better scope for understanding the social order, and it might help the institutions to streamline the system in a very systematic manner. Now, you understood what is the research, why the research is required, and what are the skills required. It's skill in the sense collecting a data. That data should be verifiable, concrete evidence on that. And what are the ways in which this exploration of evidence can be carried out? What kind of nature of research can be carried out? Akriti.
As Arul sir has already talked about the acumen that one needs to have to conduct research, now the nature part of research deals with it being a systematic process. Research needs to be conducted in a very systematic manner, in a very scientific manner, and there's a set process. First, we'll identify the research gap, then we'll delve into finding the topic, the research area, then the topic, then we'll lean on towards finding the literature pertaining to that particular topic, and after finding the literature that is relevant to our topic, we'll find a theory that we might be able to use as a framework. Then we'll move on towards finding a methodology or a framework wherein how we'll conduct the research. Then we'll move forward and analyze the data that we've collected, whether it's from a field, whether it's from a lab, or whether it's from somewhere else. Next, the nature of research is also testable. Now that we're conducting research in a very systematic manner, we'll have to ensure that the data that we're finding is testable at other circumstances. So for example, if a researcher is finding a particular data at a particular point of time and has been developing a theory, that same theory needs to be assessed by another researcher, and if it is verifiable, then it will be of benefit to the research community as well. Next, research also needs to be reliable. Now we are also putting up a process in a very scientific and systematic manner. Therefore, the process needs to be very reliable for other researchers to take up that forward. We also need to see that if a research that we're conducting is replicable. Now another researcher might want to replicate the methodology, the framework, or perhaps your own findings. So, for that essence, it needs to be very objective as well. Objective, I mean, the researcher's bias should be out of it. Therefore, no subjectivity should come into the picture here. It should also be ethically neutral. When it comes to the researcher's point of view, he should be neutral and the research should also be neutral. Again, it should be devoid of all kinds of bias. Make sure that when you're conducting research, you are avoiding all kinds of conflict of interest in your own mind. Also, research should be cumulative in nature. As Arul sir has already talked about, research being a building block for all kinds of knowledge, whether it's theory, whether it's literature. Therefore, research should be cumulative in nature. You are already conducting research in a very processed manner. Therefore, you collect all kinds of literature, whether it's knowledge, whether it's theory, whether it's a methodology, and you're combining that to formulate one kind of research project. It should be predictive. Now, when we talk about research being predictive, it means that we're connecting the past, the present, and the future to a great extent. Therefore, you can already predict some kind of research and how it's going to lean towards your findings. But again, when we talk about predictive, it does not mean that your bias should come into the picture. Therefore, make sure that the research that you're conducting is not is objective and not subjective, and you're also bringing into the picture of predictivity here. Lastly, research should be public. Now, what we mean by public is that research is usually shared up on university websites, on other platforms, whether it's databases, journals. Therefore, it can be accessed by anyone and everyone. Apart from market research, all kind of academic research is usually up for grabs for the public.
Now you must be getting a clarity about what's the difference between doing a routine, normal kind of exploring information in a routine life than academic research or industry research. When it comes to academic research, you have Akriti listed many points. It should be systematic, objective, by devoid of any biases like that. So it should be rigorous and that. It's a kind of research, it's a thinking process. But at the same time, it should be played out in a very systematic, within a one boundary. The boundary is set by a standard rules on that. If you do it, then the whatever outcome is coming is acceptable to others. Ultimately, what we are trying to understand in the research is we are finding an answer to a scenario in which we are fumbling with. We are not able to understand the scenario properly. So we are finding a solution. The solution is an explanation. That explanation should be acceptable to others if we do it in a proper manner. That explanation is supported by evidence. And what kind of purpose, why do we need to research, and what's the purpose of research? What is the purpose of doing a research? Of course, for normal academic life, in any degree, research activity part of the degree, simplest answer is to get the degree. But that's not a proper answer to this question of purpose of doing research. Of course, the immediate solution, immediate outcome of this research, part of MJM L22 is to complete the degree, to complete the course and get the degree. But look at the broad, very holistic manner. The purpose of research goes in a wide variety of different ways. The simplest way is, in the next another video, you will understand the different types of research that can be linked with this idea of purpose of research. Purpose is basically whether we can, you might have seen many theories. Theories basically, it's a kind of statement that explains one scenario. So we are now in the beginning we said that we are in the research basically to find an answer to a particular scenario. So if there are people who have studied about the same scenario, they might have concretized the scenario in a statement format. The statement is theory. So a scholar might have studied the scenario from European context, and you want to prove whether that's similar to Indian context or developing countries context or not. Different social settings, different cultural settings, different institutional parameters. So you have a theory, somebody propose a theory, similar scenario, that scenario you can verify, you'll test it. So testing a theory, testing existing knowledge is a primary purpose of a research. Or you might give a new theory, or you might give new information that over the period of time somebody else will create a theory. Right. So that is the primary functions. Otherwise, we tend to do a research to understand the social system, social behavior, individual behavior, why somebody is not able to adapt the corona appropriate behaviors, or why delaying adopting the behavior. If you find the answer for that, we can appropriately give an intervention to rectify the problem. And the research can be or we market or understand the usage pattern, it's a functionality of any system, or research can be feedback about collecting the feedback in order to improvise the system. And with that, we are concluding this video program about the process and the techniques of research methods. It's kind of research basically the thinking, and it's a proper way of orienting our life towards the thinking process. And we are trying to generate explanation, that explanation backed with evidence, and that has to be done in a systematic manner. And we are doing the research for different purposes. So that is the summary of this episode, and we will meet in the next episode about the types of research. Thank you.